Can nudes be fine art? We answer that question next. This is TWiP. Is nudity fine art, and is fine art and nudity, are they interchangeable? All that stuff. So to talk about that stuff, I've brought on 3 experts this time. We've got, who we got? Let's start in the lower left is Gilmar Smith. You are in Florida. You're awesome. We just did an interview a couple days ago that will be airing soon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? This is your first time on TWiP?
Yes, it is my first time.
Yeah.
I'm a photographer. I'm a pixel abuser, as you said.
There you go. Punisher, the pixel Punisher.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I'm in Orlando, Florida, yes. And this is Mr. P.
That is Mr. P. Yeah. Then this little inside baseball on Mr. P is when we were doing the interview, I was complaining about Mr. P being distracting. So we figured that since he has to be in the scene anyway, you might as well give
Red
him
lips
some
would
clothes.
help.
Might as well give him some clothes and make him a co-host. So Mr. P is the co-host over in Florida there. All right. Also on the show, Miss Renee Robyn. Renee Robyn, you're coming to us from the other side of the planet right now in the middle of the night, and you're a super trooper. Thank you for coming on. Where are you and what are you doing?
I'm in the Netherlands right now, so it's about 3 in the morning.
You could talk low because people are next door.
I gave them the heads up that it was happening, so for an hour, I guess they'll have to forgive me.
Yeah, no, thank you for toughing this out and coming on. I'm sure I'll be paying for this in one way or another.
For so long, you have no idea.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we have an idea. And
really
welcome to the show, Renee. Also on the show is Mr. Tim Engle up here in my neck of the woods in Sacramento. What's going on, Tim?
Yeah. Hey, neighbor. How are you?
I'm good. Good. So we round out the show for this topic on can nudity be fine art? And I'm gonna throw the first underhanded sort of softball to roll the dice. Gilmar. So, you're gonna help kick the show off. All right, this goes to you first, and this is gonna be you other two. This is gonna sort of set the stage for how this is gonna go.
All right.
So the question I want to throw at you, Gilmar, is what is nudity? So that's an easy question. There is a Webster's definition for this. So in your own words, what is nudity?
I'm nude right here. Can you see?
Yeah. Yeah, with the strap. Yeah. What do you think? How do you define it?
No clothes, just beautiful skin, everything out there.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk about fine art, yes, in my case, the way I think about it is beautiful is fine art if it's tasteful.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's the thing, and that's. I'm glad you said that, because that basically is the gist of the discussion tonight, is the subjectivity of what tasteful is and how do you draw the line. And like in the description for the YouTube video, I said, something about is it along geographic lines, because in some parts of the world, there are different things that could be considered not acceptable, and could it be down religious lines? So Renee Robyn, I'm going to throw a slightly different question at you. So Gilmar answered, nudity is basically, no clothes, everything's out there. What is fine art, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, like anything that's creative, art is such a personal experience. But fine art, for me, in my opinion, has a timeless quality to it that transcends trends, that, goes further than... that's basically, it's appreciated at all levels of history. Yeah.
And that's again, that fine art is subjective. I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, well, fine art is anything that you blow up beyond 16 by 20. That becomes fine art, and you print it. Tim Engle, here's a third question for you before we dive into the fray of the overall conversation. What is pornography?
Yeah.
I'll trade you.
Well, you look uncomfortable there, Tim.
I don't know. I guess if something's created for titillation versus art, I guess if the intent is different, I mean, I think you can create things for different reasons. I mean,
so pornography is intent. So if your kids are on YouTube and a creator puts some full-on raw pornographic content up there and they see it, but they say, you know what, I intended this to be gynecological. The intent is one thing, but the perception is something else. Like, how do you draw the line between what someone intends as, either educational or art versus what you perceive as pornographic?
Well, it's got to be something that has to do with your upbringing, your background, and your moral structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, which changes, I'm sure, over time for some people, but I think it's definitely, my upbringing versus your upbringing is going to kind of, I may think it different than you.
Yeah, and that's the problem, which is why I wanted to do this show, because all four of us have different perceptions about probably all four of those things. We may be closer on some than others, but we're different. We have four different upbringings, four different ideas of what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. Some of us are far left, some of us are far right, some of us in the middle, speaking generally about the population. So Gilmar, I want to throw this next one to you. So if you, let's dial it down to photography. So you're a photographer, you're creating a work of art. And I know you and I, during our interview, we talked about how you build the pieces, you involve your kids and all that stuff in how you shoot. But when you create a work, are you creating that work for yourself, or are you creating it for the end viewer that's going to be watching and looking at that? Or is it a little bit of both? What do you think?
I would say a little bit of both, but when I create my self-portraiture and the images that I create with my kids is for myself. And even when I edit things for my clients is for myself. I posted a picture today that it was completely different from what my client asked me for. Mm-hmm. But I did the images that she wanted, and then I did this image for me. And it was the one that she liked the best.
Yeah.
So I think that in order for you to make your best work, you have to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, otherwise, why would you do it? If everything is altruistic, what's the coal on your fire to keep you creating? Renee, Robyn, I want a loaded question, because I like to throw you loaded questions because I know you can handle them. So, so why does it feel like most of the world hates the female nipple? Why is that? Why? And let me give you some context behind this. We have this critique channel on the TWiP PRO community, and someone posted a very good photograph of a woman who's laying on the beach, and he felt compelled to Photoshop some sand over her nipple so that people wouldn't be offended, versus the sandless version of it, which is why we're doing the show. Basically, that was the impetus of this show. So why is that? Like, why do those discolored pixels offend people more than the other parts of the body?
Well, I mean, if you look at history, I think it was only in the 50s men were allowed to go around topless, right? Mm-hmm. That was just a cultural shift that happened. There's still places around the world where male nudity is not accepted either. Yeah. We're basically speaking from a North American standpoint. Europeans, of course, are far different in a lot of places anyways, where, I was just on set today where everyone was talking about like going to the swimming pool topless because that's just what people do. Like, it wasn't like a weird thing, right? So, as far as the perceived sexualization of female nipples, it's just like purely cultural programming coming from, a largely Christian and Catholic background, in my opinion. And on top of that, there is the perception of, it's, we, as women, give birth, and we have kids and we feed people off of that, and like we grow other humans and so on and so forth. So like really, but even when we're first born, that's our like first connection to another human, right? Mm-hmm. And then somewhere along the line there, that gets, almost turned into like a deification, right? You go back into history and like sculptures, thousands of years ago, there are like these fertility sculptures with, massive breasts, right? And they're revered and they're special and they're not something necessarily to just be thrown out there, right? And then maybe some cultures it was. right? But we, especially in North America, are coming from a Catholic and Christian background, and that's largely conservative and male dominated. And that's what we have, all these years later. Do I think it can change? Of course.
Yeah. And I wonder, and part of the driving force behind that question is, where are things going? So if we, if like Renee, like you say, we're living in this, at least in North America, in sort of this box, that's sort of isolated. But what's not isolated is the internet, for the most part, depending on the country. There are a couple countries that have isolated themselves from the internet. So if you look at that as, okay, now it's Pandora, and you overlay on top of that pornography and nudity and fine art have different definitions around the world. How do we find common ground on the internet? Tim, I want to go to you after this, but Gilmar, I want to get your thoughts on that first. Like, how do we find common ground on a global basis from a photographer standpoint when we're creating work that we want to be seen or have seen by the widest audience possible?
I think it's just like a matter of perception, and a matter of taste. You can, like, if you try to please everybody, you're never gonna be able to do it. Mm-hmm. So you just have to be true to yourself. Obviously, in the social media channels, you're not able to post many things. If you post a nipple on Facebook, you're gonna be banned.
Yeah.
Unless you Photoshop a male nipple on a woman, then
because those are so vastly different, right?
Well,
I mean, the extra hair definitely helps.
Yeah.
I'm not even touching it. That was nice, Renee. Nice little bait there, but I'm not taking it. You got to do better than that. Tim,
all you have to do is notice. That's good enough for me.
Well, I think to reiterate what she said, I think it's like you can't go about it with the intent to try and please all channels, all people, all internet.
Yeah,
I think you have
but that's easier said than done. Hey, I'm a purist and I'm just going to work for myself, and it's all about the art. But Tim, you're a perfect example. You make your living shooting corporate stuff and models and all this other stuff. You can't afford to have a negative perception, because people are like, oh, wow, that's the nude shooting guy, or I feel like that was pornographic. I'm not going to let him photograph me or whatever. How do you reconcile that? Because you've photographed nudes as well as corporate shots. So how do you keep them separate?
Yeah, I mean, I'll shoot them for personal projects, and it's not, I mean, bottom line is I'll do what makes me money for the most part. It's like the corporate stuff is and I enjoy the corporate stuff a ton. I mean, I enjoy meeting those people and doing that work. Yeah. The nude stuff is for the personal use or fine art printing and things like that. So I don't market to that. That's just an outlet that I have as a personal side.
Yeah.
So it's not going on the web as part of what I do because it's not the thing that makes me money.
Yeah. Renee, who do you pander to when you create your artwork? Are you pandering to yourself, or are you pandering to the client? Or are you pandering to, if it's a personal work, depending on who it is it yourself, the client, or the end viewer of that work?
For me, I mean, I'm pretty strategic with the work that I make. I am not emotionally connected to the work at all. Like, I don't put how I feel into any image. There's only one that's ever happened with, ever. And so, I mean, that's why I work in the commercial side, because I like to create the work. I enjoy it, but I don't actually fucking care about it.
Yeah.
Because I know when I work commercially, right, I can't get attached to it because I know that they're going to change it. They're going to ask for revisions. They're going to this, they're going to that. I can't feel anything for it.
But that's weird.
So,
I mean, looking at your work, though, it's you have feeling and emotion and all that in your work. It's hard to believe that you're just like, going through the motions. It feels like you're in it.
Yeah, because I know what psychology is, and I know what makes people feel things, right? That's, once again, like why I work commercially, why I can do it, because I know that, okay, these kinds of colors and this kind of framing is going to tell this kind of story, and this is going to help this company sell stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know too many commercial artists who are successful who feel a lot about the work that they do because they burn out, because all of a sudden you're being told revision. When you're emotionally connected to it, it feels like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't. I can't.
Well,
that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the process, because I do 9 times out of 10, right? And like the personal work that I make is to get more clients, right? It's to get more work. It's to evolve, what industry do I want to get into next? Better start making some of that work, right? My personal expression comes out in writing. It doesn't come out in pictures.
Well, that begs the question then. So what is your motivation for being a photographer or a compositing artist, or, whatever we want to label ourselves as? What is your driving force? Is it just revenue based, and, when you get tired of photography, you'll move to something else? Or is it more about the art?
I didn't get into photography like everyone else did, of like this hope and a dream of like, oh my God, I'm going to have a career as a photographer. I was crippled, right? I just didn't have a choice, right? So it's like a very different experience for getting into a creative field, right? It was that like, I'm stuck in bed for 6 months, my rent's due in 3 weeks, now what the hell are we gonna do, right? So it's like, it does come from like a practical standpoint, even though, let's be honest, having a career in the creative arts is extremely impractical.
Yeah.
Right, and at this point, it's just still working.
Yeah.
And so I'm like extremely envious of people who are so emotionally connected to the work that they make. I think it's awesome. I can't relate.
Well, speaking of people that are emotionally connected to the work that they make, who do you think I'm going to talk all on next? Yes, Gilmar Smith. During our interview, you revealed that you're almost the polar opposite of Renee. I'm getting an echo from one of you guys here. I hear your speaker.
Is it me?
It might be.
Oh. It's just like I keep turning it on and off because my kids are around, so I just don't want to interfere with anybody.
Well, what do you think? What do you say to Renee's purposeful disconnection from the work versus your heart and soul and memories are literally locked into a lot of the work that you do, and that's the driving force for the work that you do? How do you reconcile those for me?
Well, that's amazing because I'm a huge fan, and her work is very, very emotional. Like, if you look at those pictures, I mean, you convey emotion a lot with it. But to me, my case is different because photography started being something like an outlet, an emotional outlet for me. And then after everything that I went through that we talked about last week, I mean, it was a matter of decision. Do I want to do something, just for money, or do I want to do something that, that makes me feel good, that kind of serve as a therapy? So that's what I do. And that's, why I try to involve my kids in what I do, self-portraiture, because it is a way for me to find emotional balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, I forget what we named your interview, but it was something about that, right? And using photography as a mechanism to manage the things that life throws at you, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Tim, you heard two polar opposite sides of the argument there in terms of, your motivations for doing your work. Renee slides on the commercial side. Gilmar is commercial as well, but more on my emotions are in the pixels, even though she likes to punish them. But they're in the pixels.
That speaks a lot about. That says a lot about her.
Exactly. Oh yeah, that's right. We'll have to dive into that. Tim, what do you think, man? Where do you fall on that scale?
I almost feel like I am kind of like in the middle. It's I do get emotionally invested in certain types of the stuff I do. I do it because I actually like the process. I like, I talk about the corporate stuff. I like going out and I like meeting the people and I like talking to them and I like, in some cases I get a few minutes, but I like getting to know them. I like the challenge of walking into environments. Yesterday I had, 8 minutes to shoot a group of 12.
Yeah.
I like that challenge. Having 4 shoots, in 3 hours that I have to get done because there's deadlines to that stuff. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
That pace. But then I like to slow down and I like to have, long sessions with people that are, with portrait sessions that are more intimate and that I get to know them and I just have a conversation, because I think some of the best portraits I have feel like you're having a conversation with that person in the image.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm kind of in the middle in there.
Yeah. Well, let's put a fine point on this topic that we're covering, and that's the idea of nudity and fine art. How do you reconcile it? I want to paint a picture for you guys, and Tim, maybe you can continue on this. When you're creating, let's take commercial work and commissioned assignments out of it, all that stuff. You just had this vision in traffic one day. You're like, I got to create this image, and it looks like this, and this. Where do you draw the line on if nudity or some sort of suggestive, sort of pose or element is included in the photo? Where do you draw the line on what's acceptable and what's not? For example, I can show down to the waist, but I can't show any pubic hair. Or I can show, personally, I can show a little bit of the side, but not too much nipple in there. Like, where do you draw the line at? What's acceptable for you as a personal artist?
I think as I'm shooting, I don't know that the line morphs depending on what it is. I mean, like I'll shoot until I feel like it's there. If the nipple is in it, then it's fine. If crotch is in there, then that's what it was. I shot some stuff 2 weeks ago, and it was all about like just a shaft of light. So it was about moving through that light and finding the angles and the shapes that, still say what it was, but showed whatever it needed to show to illustrate the image. So I don't know that there's a line necessarily. I think it's just about, where it kind of like evolves to. It depends. That's for me.
Yeah, it depends. Renee, what about you? So you have a different line. I know I've seen your work, and you push the limits in a lot of different ways, and your work is stunning. Where do you have a line? Do you have a line when it comes to the kind of content that you will or won't depict in your images?
For me, the biggest thing is respect. Because, I do work a lot with the BDSM community, lesbian, gay, transgender as well. And most of that work doesn't go online. It's a lot of people who are in the closet, that will never come out, whether it's career reasons or whatever. But my line is no matter what, like it can show whatever, however, whatever is in, out, doesn't matter. But so long as it is depicted in a way that does not demean anyone or anything or any concept, that's where my line is.
Yeah. And Gilmar, what about you? Where do you fall on that?
I think that it's just like Renee says, like respect. I've done, boudoir sessions are not my thing, but I've done it for friends and I've done it for people that have approached me, and is whatever they want me to do whenever they feel comfortable. And to me, it's a matter of taste. If it's tasteful, if it's sublime, there is a little bit of mystery there. Yeah, that's my style.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, because this is the hardest unanswerable question for many artists, right, that work in visual medium, and that's the idea of what is acceptable. Like you look at any piece of art from way back in the day, paintings, sculptures, or whatever, and nudity was less of an issue, like Renee brought up, versus today. It is an issue, and I think part of the issue is the fact that we're on a smaller planet, through the grace of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all that. Everyone, for the most part, or many of us, are connected. So now there needs to be that global thread or netting around us of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And Gilmar, I want to keep going with you on this. I want to ask your thoughts, specifically because you are very active and prolific on social media. So you post a lot, you're posting to your stories, you keep up to date every day, you're in helicopters, you're all over the place doing cool stuff, right? So, so that means that the people that you are funneling your content through have the final say on what actually gets out to whom, So as an artist, as someone just posting, this is my day, this is something I did today, maybe you guys can enjoy it. But as an artist, when you post content and it has to go through a little mini tribunal at YouTube, Google, or Facebook, how do you manage that? Like, are you creating art for the censorship at Facebook, or are you creating it for yourself?
I create everything for myself, and I respect my viewers, and I'm a parent, I'm a single parent, so I have that responsibility because, my the most important thing in my life are my kids and the view that they have, of me. So I try to create something that please my standards, and something that not to please everybody, but that somehow people can enjoy, because that's what I want. I want to bring joy to people. Yeah. That's my jam.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, that microphone and the top hat on the microphone is bringing joy too.
Yeah.
Renee, I want to have you tackle one of the questions that just came in through the chat, and it's from Gary Monroe. He says, "Why isn't the question what can't be fine art? Like, what, in your opinion, what cannot be fine art? If it's subjective, is the answer nothing? What do you think?"
Yes, I mean, I think that's exactly that. If you're trying to define what fine art is, every single gallery in the planet is going to have a different idea of what fine art is. Every single social media platform is going to have a different idea of what is, acceptable fine art and unacceptable fine art. Yeah. So it's a matter, in my opinion, of finding whatever channels suit whatever your rules are and sticking to that and putting the blinders onto the rest. Doesn't matter. Just find your tribe, find your people, your humans, your bots, whatever, and then run with it.
I love it. Yeah. Timmy, you were going to say something?
No, just agreeing. Yeah, I think finding that channel.
Yeah, Tim. No, go ahead.
Sorry,
Renee.
if I can expand on that. Like, a lot of people will say, like, "Oh, what's the best social media channel network? Which one should I be putting my focus onto?" And I'm like, man, I've seen everyone succeed on every channel, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's Facebook. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, right? I mean, there's so many ways to communicate with people and with humans to share whatever it is that you're working on. Yeah. It's about finding that, right? And it's the hardest part is at the beginning when you're just trying to find out where that is, right? And that just takes time.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about motivations for shooting this kind of content from photographers. And, I've talked to hundreds of photographers over the years. I know a lot of people that do photography for varying reasons. In fact, almost everybody has a slightly different reason for clicking that shutter button. And I want to put it out to you guys. Gilmar, we'll start with you, and then we'll go around the table. The motivations, in your opinion, not speaking for yourself, because we know why you shoot, and all that, but looking at other photographers when they're taking photos of the female form, let's just say the female form, of nude women, in various positions. Is that art? And I'm asking genuinely, is it art just to take the photo of it and say, hey, here's a naked girl in this position? Or does it need to have something more to the shot in order for it to be considered art, or just creative lighting? Like, what do you think?
It's a matter of taste and style. You can have somebody naked just by a window, and it's the way that you shoot it and the way that you pose it. And I mean, Lindsay Adler does fantastic nude photography.
Yeah, she does.
And her lighting is out of this world. And there are some other fine art artists that do it perfectly. So to me, it's a matter of lighting, style, posing, and whatever you want to convey.
Yeah. Yeah. Renee, what about you? I mean, where do you fall on that spectrum in terms of, if you and I know you have an opinion on this, so don't hold back. So in terms of, when you see work online that is, like the pretty girl on the beach, or the pretty girl in the car, or the pretty girl doing X, Y, and Z, and it seems like it's for the sake of, saying that, hey, I got a pretty girl to stand in front of my camera. Like, where do you fall on that? Where do you draw the line at what's art and what's not, looking at it through that lens and not the lens of, well, if the artist said it's art, then it's art? What do you think?
My line comes across on whether or not it starts a conversation with myself. So if it's fine art, in my opinion, it'll be something that strikes me, that I don't just double tap scroll, right? Mm-hmm. Fine art will grab me and hold me, for better or worse, right? Fine art, in my mind, doesn't necessarily mean beautiful, right? I mean, Gregory Crutzen, for example, photographs beautiful decay, right? Of the American dream, right? Yeah. People wouldn't call that classically beautiful, but is it fine art? In my opinion, absolutely. So yeah, I think if I had to sum it up quickly without taking up the rest of the time, I would say, does it start a conversation? Does it make me question things? Does it make me feel anything good or bad? It doesn't matter whether I'm like, oh my God, that's so repulsive, right? I mean, it's still eliciting an emotional reaction from me. Yeah. And then if we're going fine art nude, then I guess that's whether they're clothed or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, fine art is fine art, and then nude is they're naked or they're not.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing is interesting. This is a fascinating topic. We could totally talk about this forever and ever. Tim, the same question to you, right? Like, where do you draw the line at, and how do you, the difference between, hey, pretty girl, stand in front of my camera and take your clothes off, or hey, pretty guy, whatever, versus I'm actually creating something of value and elicits a response like Renee was saying.
I was thinking the other day I got an email for a cruise that apparently was like a workshop to photograph nude women.
Okay. And
so I was thinking, well, I think the difference there is they're taking pictures, they're not making pictures.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and there maybe is a line in there where it's like, okay, I have one model and I have 5 photographers, taking essentially the same picture. I think there's an intent that's different there versus like I have one photographer with a model working with light and angles and posing and controlling the image to make what they want. So I think maybe the intent is the difference in some of that. I can't imagine they're all fine artists trying to make, a body of work. I think a lot of them want to just go see beautiful women naked on a beach.
Right. Well, and then here's the question. I mean, back to the conversation about the sort of internet censorship overlords, that everything that you press post on filters through and has the potential of either being knocked down and no one sees it, or, at the worst case, having your account shut off. Right. So Gilmar, looking at things through that lens, because this, like we said, these conversations about pornography versus fine art, all this stuff has been had for decades, back in Penthouse and Playboy and, before that, and people have these conversations over and over again. But the spin that I wanted to put on this part of the conversation is the internet, and not only the services that we have to filter our images through, but also, you could post an image on Facebook and somebody could find it offensive, and now you've offended a small group of people, and now you're a villain. How do you manage that, Gilmar? I mean, how do we manage it as the This Week in Photo Army? How do we manage, okay, I have this vision for a shot, I want to do it, but let me take this piece out because it might offend this group, and I can't put that in there because this country is offended if I depict that in there, and, we're global now. So how do we manage that?
Well, in my case, I try not to post that kind of photography, not because I don't like it. I love it, and I follow, I have so many friends that shoot news, and they do it greatly. But I work mostly with families and kids, and that somehow will interfere my business, even though I have no problem with nudity at all. But I've seen so many beautiful photography from my friends that have been banned from Facebook. Wow. Which, I say they're tasteful, they're beautiful, but there is always going to be somebody that is going to be offended.
Yeah. And that's the issue, right? I mean, part of it, and Renee, you can speak to this, right? In depth, it's very easy to offend people online, or rile them up, or make them happy or sad or feel a certain way, right? It's very easy to do that online, especially if you have a large following like you guys do. So how do you manage that, Renee? How do you reconcile that whenever you post something, and you are transparent, raw, to the nth degree, to the marrow online, right? You say whatever comes in your head. How do you manage all those communications, the images that you want to post, with knowing that you're going out to a global audience?
Well, one of it is knowing the target audience, right? So my personal Facebook page is savage.
It is.
It's a lot more intense than my business Facebook page, right? So I know that if there's people who are a little bit more sensitive or whatever, I just tell them look, this is offending you, go over here. But on the other side, every now and then I just pulling the pin and watching to see what happens.
Yeah. You just stir it up a little bit.
Yeah, like a couple times a month if I'm like stuck editing some job that I really don't want to be working on. You know, I'll just like pull on some really controversial topic that I know is just going to get people going and just see what happens. I mean, I'm really interested in psychology. I'm really, really interested in what makes people tick. And I like the fact that social media allows for a playground for me to figure out exactly like which people, because I mean, like I pay attention to who comments. I don't necessarily, you know, read everything all the time, but I do pay attention because I want to figure out like, okay, if I write this, how much money am I going to bet against myself that these people are going to comment? And I'm usually at this point, it's been long enough, I'm like 98% accurate, which is pretty fun. But I mean, at the end of the day also, I mean, if I want to post nudes, I go to Twitter. If I want to post stuff that's like remotely questionable, it goes to Twitter. Yeah. Right. If I go to Instagram, I mean, I know I'm going to make it like ridiculously, insanely, painfully PG, right? Except for the writing, because they can't ban me for what I'm writing yet.
Yet.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not throwing out hate speech or telling people to like hurt other people or animals or whatever. Although apparently that seems okay, but a nipple is not.
Yeah, it's very true. That is very true.
I can blowtorch a fucking cat on Facebook and it's okay, but God forbid you show a nipple, you know, you're going to hell.
Right.
But I mean, that also, you know, there's like a morality there that is very, very questionable. Yeah. But it is knowing, like, you know, what playground do you want to get into? Like, I know if I go to certain countries, I have to cover my hair.
All right. Looks like Renee is breaking up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Renee, your connection is dropping or slowing down at least. So let me.
Oh, did I lose you guys?
No, we're still here. Tim, let me throw it to you while Renee's connection throttles back up. So, what do you think about that?
Posting on Facebook and social media, actually and I don't have a big following on that stuff, and I'm not an engager on that stuff. It's a time for me that I'm not interested in sitting and typing. Mm-hmm. You know, I try and just I'll post on Instagram once or twice a day. And I'll just have that preset already with all the things I want.
But are you worried though? Are you worried at all that, you know, because and I think you are, you know, because I look at the stuff that you post and I know your body of work. I've seen the stuff behind the scenes that you shoot, and there's a line there of stuff that you will put online versus what you won't put online. So how do you?
Not that I'm worried about it, but I try and keep a consistent body of work. I've already started one direction that I still continue to try and push that direction.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's times I thought about, well, I have this body of work, maybe then I start another channel that's that body of work.
Yeah.
You know, because right now it's I mean, there's two Instagrams now, so one is just the general stuff, and one is fairly cultivated for the other stuff. So I don't worry anymore. There was times I thought, oh, I don't want to offend somebody, but now I'm just like, I don't have time to.
I love that. I love that. That's cool. That's cool. Well, see, we're all basically in general alignment. I want to remind the chat room, if you guys want to get your questions or comments, and go ahead and post those, and I'll be going through those in the next segment. And we're all keeping an eye on the chat over there. We see you guys in there typing your stuff in. All right, guys, I want to continue this topic, but I want to take a quick second to dive into the picks of the week. And Tim, I know you have one. I didn't see Gilmar's or Renee's listed in there, so you guys have about 10 seconds while Tim delivers his pick of the week. Tim.
So, you know, in the past, my tips of the week have always been little gadgets or little things that aren't related that I've adopted for photography, from little goofy lights to, you know, who knows. But this one is probably the most expensive one that I've ever done. So for years, I've been like the Alien B shooter with the, you know, lights that aren't super expensive. And I dove into, you know, high-speed sync finally after ever.
Oh, nice.
And so it's these Photex and their battery packs, so I had a big project in Arizona where I was photographing the female fighter pilots for the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of pushed me to those. I needed something that had no wires, that I could move quickly, that had high-speed sync. And these things have been phenomenal.
Nice.
On a battery pack, they went all day.
What do they run per head?
I want to say it might be, well, I have a pack and a head, so it was about $900 for that.
Okay. Oh, no.
And, we all would love to have expensive photons like Pro Photos, but this was a much better investment, and they've been rock solid. I used them today. I got them set up and shot a portrait in about 8 minutes and was right on at 4,000ths of a second and was out. So they've been great.
Welcome to the world of strobe, Tim Engle.
Whatever.
All right. Who wants to go next? Gilmar or Renee Robyn for pick of the week?
I've got mine.
All right, Renee, go for it.
On the topic of art nude stuff, I think there's a really, really great art nude book out there by Alan Amato called Slip. Mm-hmm. You can get it on Amazon for about $40. It's awesome, and it's all about being nude for a living, and these like short essays and stories, but about the subjects that he's photographed, and it's beautiful lighting. It's really very different posing. It's not the usual. Mm-hmm. And more than anything, that book in my mind defines what an excellent body of fine art work looks like, because I read that book cover to cover.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to meet him when I was in LA for coffee, and I picked up a copy of the book, and I knew I was going to love the photography because I'd followed the project on Instagram, but I was surprised at how compelling the stories were that were associated with the book, and then the framing that he chose and how it's organized. It's really fantastic. So I definitely recommend that if you're looking for some artistic inspiration.
Awesome. All right. Make sure you punch that into our document so I can put that in the notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. And Gilmar Smith, what about you? What is your pick of the week?
Well, for me, is my handy platypod.
The platypod, yeah.
Yeah, I just got them recently, and I've been playing with them. I'm now using the Max, the big one, because somehow it makes me feel like more comfortable. I have to adjust to the and I used it. If you go to my Facebook page, my kids. I have a crazy house. My kids love to go down the stairs on a mattress.
What's wrong with that?
That's fun. They're not playing with their iPads or, their phone or the computer or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wanted to take a picture of them because, it's one of those memories that you want to, keep forever. So I used that little thing, and it's amazing. Everything that you can do with it, and it's just so secure. And I put my camera, it doesn't take room at all, and it was awesome. So they have two, the Platypod Max and the Platypod Ultra. I have both of them, and you can just put them in your purse, and it's not heavy at all.
Yeah, they're like a little plate. I have both of them as well, and they're like a little plate that you can put a tripod head on top of and put your camera on there, or put a light on there, or whatever you want. Yeah, they're fantastic. I keep one in my camera bag.
I have it here.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, and their packaging is ridiculous too. It's like Apple packaging.
Beautiful.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a good first pick of the week. Very nice. All right, guys. So we're going to move back into the show. Before we jump into the Q&A for the audience, I want to give you guys a chance to kind of wrap up the topic of, can nudity be fine art, with some final thoughts on photographers that are pondering this or that shoot this genre. Give them a little bit more information from your perspective on how to approach it, either from don't post this kind of stuff online, or just do whatever the heck you want to do. Tim Engle, I'm going to let you go first, man. What are your closing thoughts on the topic?
Do what you want.
But don't call me to bail you out.
Yeah. I will say that as a male, I make sure that I have people with me on set so that the intent is always clear on all parts. So I have a makeup artist and a hairstylist, or, and even in some cases wardrobes. And I am, I think, and I never have a closed set. It's like, they're like, hey, can my boyfriend come or my girlfriend come, whoever. I'm like, bring who you want. Yeah. I'll make them hold a reflector. So I think do what you want. Do it with, hopefully you have good intent and good motivation. And
I'm gonna piggyback on top of that. That's sage advice for sure, but I don't think it just applies to the male female direction. I think it applies in all kinds of X, Y, up, down directions. If you're dealing with other humans, there are boundaries, right, that you don't cross, and it's basically care and feeding of other people and not getting in their space and not being an idiot, basically. So.
Yeah, I mean, all of my shoots are with crew. Yeah. Other than when I'm out with corporate people, lawyers and doctors. But, if they're in studio, it's a crew.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I like it. Plausible deniability. Renee, Robyn, what about you? Closing thoughts on the topic for the audience?
I think whatever it is, I mean, the most common question that I get is, how do I get into making fine art work? And I'm like, well, just make a shitload of it until the community, which is our global community, recognizes it, like until a large number of humans acknowledge what you're doing and they all say the same thing. The feedback loop is saying the same thing over and over and over again. Then I think that's when you've started to achieve what you're looking for.
Yeah, love it. Perfect. Sage advice. You guys know stuff. Gilmar Smith, closing thoughts on the topic. Can fine art be nudity, and can nudity be fine art, and all that stuff? What do you think?
Of course it can, but I'm going to repeat everything that I've been saying. It has to be, it's a matter of perspective. Yeah. It has to be pretty. Well, it doesn't have to be pretty, but it has to be tasteful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And now we're back to the beginning of the conversation again, because who defines what tasteful is? My taste may be different. I would argue that my taste is probably different.
Yeah.
I've got weird taste. And I know Renee Robyn has weird taste, and so does Tim.
Oh, Freddie.
Don't paint me with the same brush there, Mr.
I'm sorry. I'm going to throw paint on you. I know.
What was his name, Renee?
Oh, Freddie?
Oh, yeah. Really? Now I'm Freddie. Yeah. See what you started, Gilmar? Freddie. Yeah, that was high school. That was me in high school. All right, guys, let's move into
speaking of full circle, now it's back.
Yeah, now it's back. I'm back in high school.
Happy birthday.
Let's go into some of the questions that we've been getting in. Let's see. Okay, here's one from Mark Harris. Let me bring this on in here. So Mark Harris says, porn aside, I can post nudes on my website. However, I have to censor them or make sure I make images specifically to post on social media. Do you guys do that? Do you create okay, this is the real thing, and then here's the digitized version that will not get my account shut down? Renee, you do that?
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
Because I realized that some social media platforms are like Saudi Arabia and some of them are not.
Yeah.
And, no matter what country you go into, whatever platform you go into, there's rules and you either abide by them or you pay the consequences. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, of course.
So you guys all agree on that? So you're going to, if you're going to do something really close to the edge, then you're going to create two versions of it?
Yeah. And I don't like editing or putting black bars on things. So I'll do a version that definitely can be out there as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
I do big black bars, but I put funny quotes on the bars. Because if I have to censor the shit that I'm putting out there, I'm at least going to make it funny.
Good. If you're going to live on the edge, you might as well live on the edge, right?
Yeah. Just commit. Yeah.
I think I want to start shooting. I'm just going to get cardboard and shoot a version when holding cardboard.
Yeah.
Here we go.
How do you like me now?
Yeah.
All right, guys. So the next question is from Body Snatcher. And Body Snatcher says, can someone start out in photography shooting nudes? Or is it better to work your way, become popular, then incorporate it? Gilmar, what do you think? Should they start that way? Or should they ease their career in that direction later?
I wonder how somebody that is just starting says, oh, hey, I just had a camera. Yeah. It's weird to me, but hey, I just have a camera and I'm going to start shooting nudes. So I think that first you have to kind of build a reputation or try just doing something with a little bit of clothes on and then just jump into, I think that is a way to ease your subjects too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think, I don't know. That's a hard question because if your calling is to shoot that genre, you know, what do you do? You're like, oh, I'm just gonna do this other stuff first, and I don't know. Renee, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, when people first get into photography, when they start it because they love it and it's like this expression outlet, I mean, a lot of people, many photographers I know, started out doing nudes because it's an easy dopamine hit, right? It's an easy target to get likes. It's an easy this, it's an easy that. It doesn't have to be a good photo. And people are just like, yeah, tits.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
You know, and I don't really see anything wrong with that as long as it's not being used for an exploitation purpose. Right, like we all have our creative process, and it has started and grown such individual ways for all of us. I mean, there is always the question of like, if you just bought a camera, who are you going to convince? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who are like, hell yeah, I'm cool with it, whatever, why not?
That's true.
Right, so I mean, it goes back to like who your clients are, and I think there's a client for every pay scale, and I think that there's someone willing to stand in front of your camera for every level of skill, and that's the only reason that we get to where we are, because somebody had low enough standards to accept us taking their photo when we first buy a camera, whether they're clothed or not.
And I've seen it both directions. I have a friend who started with his girlfriend and her friends, and that circle and that group, and he killed it. He actually did phenomenal stuff. And then he had people just asking him to do it. So it kind of like, it went that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to start somewhere all the time. All right.
I mean, the biggest thing there that I would say, though, is like I've always been cautious with nude work because it's really easy to destroy a reputation and it's really hard to get it back.
Yeah.
And with nude work, as obviously this conversation, you know, enlightens, is that it still is, unfortunately, in many places, a very controversial subject. And so tread carefully, but I mean, if you're going to do it, just commit.
Yeah.
And just be like, whatever shitstorm comes out of this in 10 years when I go for politics, fine.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, just do it. So Renee taking the Nike slogan.
Yeah, right? With everything in life.
All right. Next question up is from Trevor Panaki. Trevor says, traditionally, the arts have revolved around the concept of an idealized form of beauty, everything from music to photography. Does it have to be beautiful to be fine art? Gilmar, you're saying no, it doesn't. So it can be ugly and still be fine art? I would argue most art that I see in modern art museums is ugly. So, so it doesn't have to be beautiful?
No, it doesn't have to be beautiful, and it's just beauty is different from everybody. You know, everybody has a different taste. So what it can be beautiful to me, it may be not beautiful to you.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, so I'm just stepping through these questions now. Here's another one. Interesting. Well, this is the question that we've been answering all night. Zoran says, what is fine art? I think we tried to answer that. I don't think there's an answer to that, frankly. I think the answer to what is fine art is it's subjective. It depends on where you are, who you are, what your goals are as an artist. And even in the pornographic genres, where somebody would say, yes, that is blatantly pornographic, in some certain circles, people may argue that. So, yeah.
Some people would argue that porn is still art.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it is an art form in order for you to look at it and go like, yeah, that's porn.
Yeah.
You know, there is like excellently executed pornography, and then there's terribly executed pornography, like everything else.
Yeah. But most people don't notice, right? So,
you'd be surprised.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the lighting in that was,
Yeah, but look what happened with Playboy and Hustler. Like, they revolutionized nudes, right?
Yeah.
Like, that changed everything. So you can't even say that, like, you know, people don't really notice. I mean, sure, there's like, you know, deep spirals of Pornhub that you can go to where it's just like, what the hell have I done?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're
Weird. Yeah, no, I like read a subreddit, so I've been told. But I mean, on the other side of it, though, there's still like there is such a thing as like excellently shot everything on the planet, and then there's terribly shot everything on the planet. So I mean, even if you want to do porn, you're gonna have to spend a bunch of years being bad at it before you finally get good at it.
There you go. I like it. I like the Nike way of doing business there. The last question I'm going to give to you guys, and this is the perfect way to end the show, and this is from a TWiP Pro member, Kyle Nishioka. He couldn't be here in the chat tonight, but he sent his question in through the membership board. He says, Does anyone's definition of an art form or of art versus porn matter if you can't program it into a robot? The policing of online content is now or will eventually end up being done by machine. How is art supposed to be determined algorithmically? Tim, you want to take a stab at that?
No.
Hey, in the future, you know, software is going to make the determination on if your image is going to make it online or not. So,
God, I don't. Jeez.
Yeah.
What's the question, man?
I love it. How is art supposed to be determined algorithmically? Like, or is it just like Mad Max for photographers at that point when the machines are in control? Yeah,
I mean, is it going to be dictated on shape and light and skin color? Then is black and white going to be like, not detectable? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's is the amount of bumps in the image going to be a flag on the algorithm? I don't know.
Right.
It's
well, the whole thing is scary, Renee. You know, from your standpoint, how do you feel about that? I mean, if computers take over what the general consensus of this planet says is art and what's not art, and obviously hopefully somebody's controlling the computer, but how does that make you feel as an artist, knowing that your audience is held hostage by these algorithms, and as an artist, you have to play within its rules in order to get your work out in front of the widest amount of people? What do you think about that?
I'm super stoked about that. Bring on the AI. Like, AI is so much more intelligent than we are. I'm cool with it because for me, then it gives me. I mean, all I need is a set of rules to play by. Right, I want to know the rules, and if I know the rules, then I'm good, right? Like I said, like art, like photography for me is not my form of self-expression, and if it is, I mean, I don't think any of us can conceive what a world with like a high-functioning AI would be like. But I can tell you, it'd be nothing like it is now, which, given our current circumstances of the world, I'm pretty cool with.
I like that little zing thrown in there.
But I mean, like, really, I think it's super fascinating. I'm really excited to be inspired because I want to see what the next step is.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, science fiction geek. We're right here. We're right there. Gilmar, what about you? What do you think is if the machine and robotic overlords control what you post online, does that affect what you'll shoot? Will you just pull a Renee and just say, hey, just show me the instructions and where the sandbox is, and I'll play within that? Or do you rail against the machine? What do you do?
What are you going to do? I mean, you have to be out there. You have to be on social media, so you have to play by the rules, you know?
Yeah.
Or find a way around them, which I don't think that you will be able to find.
It's already what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I do think you'll shoot what you want to shoot, and the channel will develop still, too.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, so it will find everything finds its flow. Everything finds its channel.
The human species, the human consciousness is like water anyways. It always just seems to find a way to go whatever way it's going to go.
Yeah. It's usually the path of least resistance or its lowest point possible. Right?
We're going to be back to like flipping notes and desks, you know, with like the little photographs printed off that are like, we can't put this online, and like sharing it with other kids in class.
Nice. That sounds so nice, though. I don't know. All right. Well, cool, guys. This has been a fascinating conversation. You guys are all great. You've been troopers getting through this. Renee, Robyn, thank you for staying up till 4 a.m. in the morning in the Netherlands. That's where you're hanging out right now, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go scrape my makeup off with some rubbing alcohol and go to sleep.
Well, before you do that, tell us where people should go to connect with you or sign up for one of the workshops you're about to do.
Well, that depends on the kind of email you want to send me. So if you're going to send me some hate mail, it's Frederick at...
Freddie at...
There you go. Yeah.
FreddieBJ at hotmail.com.
I have extensive filters. Go for it.
But no, mostly, I mean, if you search Renee Robyn Photography on most channels, or Renee Robyn Photo, where some places I'm limited, you'll find all kinds of crap. So...
Awesome.
Just Google search, you find stuff. ReneeRobynPhotography.com is also a very ignored photo updated website.
Perfect. Yeah, you've been updating your website for 3 years now. If the clock is counting properly, I think it's been about 3 years.
I spent 3 months doing back end shit the whole time I was home. Last time I was there, it soaked. Still not live yet.
Yeah. I told you. All right, well, cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Renee. Hang in for a couple more minutes, and then you'll be in that pillow, I promise.
Yeah.
Gilmar Smith. There's a bunch of stuff going on with you. I mean, I've been following you. You are now sponsored by Three-Legged Thing, right?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're sending tripods to the entire This Week in Photo audience, right?
Sure, I'm not.
But what does that entail before we let you go? Being sponsored by Three-Legged Thing. What does that mean? What's the gist?
Their pro team and I mean, have you seen the names of everybody there?
Yeah.
I cannot believe it. I'm just like a little simple girl.
Whatever. Uh-huh. Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I'll link to your website or all of your websites in the blog post for this episode, as well as the YouTube description. Last but not least, Tim Engle. Where can people go to connect with you?
Engle Photo. So it's Engle. It's either Engle Photo on Instagram or Tim Engle on Instagram, or
you're all over. Tim Engle.
Flickr. Still on Flickr.
You're still on Flickr, huh? Yeah. Well, I don't say that negatively. I say that TWiP has a huge presence on Flickr, and I am now moving back towards Flickr because our friends at SmugMug have acquired Flickr, and I know they're going to do something fantastic with it. So I have renewed faith in Flickr not going away anytime soon, which is why I wasn't there before. I figured they were going to be going away.
I use Flickr because for whatever reason, I upload the stuff to that, and then I pull it over to Moo, and then my cards actually print really well that way.
Yeah.
So
very cool. All right. Well, thank you all for coming on. It's been a great show. You'll all be coming on again soon. Gilmar, your interview is going to go live shortly. So if people want to learn all about you, that's going to be in the TWiP feed in the next week or so. People can check you out and get an inside kind of look at the world of Gilmar Smith, which is awesome. All right, guys. I think that's it. If you want to, This Week in Photo audience, if you want to stay up to date with everything This Week in Photo, we're at thisweekinphoto.com. And to subscribe to the show, the podcast, the audio, just go to thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe, I think we have it at, and or thisweekinphoto.com/YouTube will redirect you over to our YouTube channel, or just search for it. If you're watching live, you're already on our YouTube channel. All right, folks, that's it. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off. Wave goodbye, everybody. This is TWiP.